Okay, fantastic. Declarations of interest, please. Councillor Fage.
Pecuniary 9B.
Okay, any other declarations of interest? Okay, none. Fantastic. So I do not have any chairman's announcements, so that will be quick. Do we have any members of the public? There are none in the room. Are there any online? No members of the public. That was equally quick. We also don't have an invited speaker, so that takes us to item number 6. Members' questions, please. No members' questions. So then on with number 7, which is minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of November. So if we go through that first for accuracy, so we'll start with page 5, page 6, page 7, and finally page 8. Okay, no accuracy comments. Is everyone happy to approve those minutes then? Move it. Okay, thank you. And then go through again for matters arising then. So page 5, matters arising. Page 6, page 7, page 8. No matters arising. Thank you. Okay, that's the minutes done. So items for consideration. So the first is on the Council's plans for celebrating Her Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Karim, would you like to introduce that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the report in front of members sets out a proposal for a Jubilee celebrations, which essentially is bookended on a long weekend, starting off from Thursday, the 3rd of June through to the Sunday, with essentially setting out a proposal for a fire beacon to be lit on the Thursday evening, and again to be lit again. To open the entire celebrations on the Thursday evening, and again then to be lit on the Sunday afternoon. The officers are currently engaging with a number of voluntary community groups to provide festivities and celebrations during on the Friday and the Saturday, and also the Sunday in between those dates. Additionally, we're also looking at running a small number of dedicated Jubilee street celebrations, street parties, around Biggleswade area, and looking to provide some bunting and additional support to those streets. And we're inviting, I think, via social media for that to happen, actually, in terms of generating interest from parties on that. I'll pause there.
Okay, thank you. If I could just make a factual correction. So at the bottom of the first page of the report, which is page 9, the date Thursday, the 3rd of June is mentioned. Just to correct that, I believe it's actually Thursday, the 2nd of June this year, just to avoid potential confusion if we talk about dates. Any comments then on the proposals outlined here? Councillor Fage.
Yeah, okay, so firstly, thank you for the report, and thank you for starting to carry through some of the things which we discussed in an informal meeting of this committee a few weeks ago. I guess something I'm keen to understand is, and perhaps some steer from this committee would be useful, is over that long weekend, what do we think is our responsibility as a council? What events are going to be ours, and then what events are going to be put on either by members of the community or by the carnival committee, for example? Do we have a view of that? Because I think it's important when understanding who's responsible for the event, who's liable if stuff goes wrong, who's paying for it, how much staff time is going into it. So I think for me, I'm keen to understand that quite early on. And if I might give a bit of steer from, I guess, my personal view is, for me, I think we need to do a couple of things and do them well. And if others in the community are better placed and have the time to put on other events, then I think we should let them. If they need to come to us to ask for advice, perhaps then that might be the extent of our role. But for me, I'd like to see, I'm seeing quite a bit on here, some of which I I think I would rather we distance ourselves from slightly, but happy to listen to what other members say as well. I may be wrong on that.
Okay, other comments, please. Councillor Strawn, I can see you thinking about it.
Just a question. I believe that the community engagement group met just over a week ago, and I haven't had a chance to peruse the minutes because unfortunately I wasn't available for that meeting. But I think there was some mention of the Platinum Jubilee in that meeting. And I can't remember whether the Carnival Committee, I think, were thinking of running various things at around that time. So I wonder what the situation is there. And just an observation on the promotional materials and the entry lampposts for the banners. I was just wondering which lampposts these were going to be and had we thought about the roundabouts?
Thank you. So in response to Councillor Strawn's questions, we have thought about the lampposts. These will be CBC lampposts, the main lampposts on the entry points into town and around town. We've taken a while ago actually some photographs, which I'm not obviously presenting here at this particular point in time, but they will be the ones which are most prominent in visibility to people travelling around that route. Going to the community engagement group, that's absolutely right. The carnival was mentioned, did come up in that specific meeting. So our understanding that that's taking place between the 14th and 18th of June. So it's going to be slightly after this particular long weekend, obviously, for the Jubilee weekend. That said, everyone we've discussed this with in terms of community and voluntary groups have all said that we want to turn this into a sort of a June of celebrations, so the entire month, if you like, it'll run through to that. And I think some of the proposals we've got in place for bunting would cover that, that time frame.
So, Councillor Russell.
I want to just take up what Councillor Fage alluded to, because we have to be very clear as a council what staff time we're giving to this, because it could completely take over. We need to understand exactly who is responsible for what, because of our possible liabilities. And if community groups are doing things, then if they are organising it, in my mind, they should be liable for any insurance that's required and for overall organisation of the event. And I think we have to be very careful where the line is in supporting community groups and certainly not standing in their way. And one of the ways we always support community groups is if there need to be road closures, for instance, for a street party. But are we supporting them? Or are we taking responsibility? And I think we need to be very clear on that, and particularly what staff time is going to be allocated, because there's so much that the council needs to do. And important though the Jubilee is, and I want to see it celebrated properly, we have to know what we're doing.
Thank you. So if I could make a few remarks. So obviously this is an incredibly important event, and I think it's really important it's celebrated in a fantastic way. I think I'm getting a little bit nervous with 3.5 months to go. We need real clarity around the town council's offer. And personally, I'm still not quite seeing that clarity here in terms of this time, this date, this event that the town council is running. And I think we need to get to that point. And I would suggest we focus on the beacon lighting ceremony on Thursday the 2nd. And maybe putting some entertainment, something around that to make that a remarkable and an event people will always remember. And then I think it's on Sunday the 5th to have a flagship event on Sunday the 5th. I think if there are events taking place in the town between those two events, we should absolutely be a point of contact for community groups in terms of any advice we can provide to them. But as I think other members have already alluded, our support should probably not extend beyond offering advice unless there's a very specific request that we agree to help with. So I think that's what I would like to see. In terms of the beacon, I understand it's not been possible to find a permanent structure. So there's a proposal here to use a temporary structure that can be reused, and that doesn't seem unreasonable to me. That seems like a reasonable proposal, and putting it where the Christmas tree goes seems to make sense, because it's a really central location where everyone can gather around. So I guess I'll open it up again to the floor, but how do we get to the point that we actually have a couple of really concrete events with details around them, please? Councillor Strawn, then Page.
Thank you, Chairman. I think your idea of a Thursday event, so to speak, and a Sunday event is the way forward, leaving Friday and Saturday free. That means it's just, we've got two events to concentrate on, and people can concentrate on those rather than spreading themselves too widely and expecting the earth. If the town as a whole does their events on Friday and Saturday, and we bookend it and make it a good beginning and a good end, I think that is probably the most important thing. But enabling others to achieve the right spirit, but we can't do something solid for 4 days for our staff. That'd be too much. But if we concentrate on making sure it starts well and ends well, and just support as practically as we can in the middle without committing staff to an endless 4 days solid.
Councillor Page.
Okay, so I have one question, and then I have a proposal as well then, I guess. So my question is, and forgive me, I was around at the time of the last Jubilee, but for the life of me, I can't remember. I just remember some boats going down the Thames and it raining. I can't remember what happened in Biggleswade. So for anybody who can offer, and I remember the Duke of Edinburgh, God rest his soul, ending up in hospital after it, unfortunately. But my question, I guess, is what did we do in Biggleswade to celebrate the diamond and the golden one in 2002? What did we do, and is there anything that we did then that we can perhaps replicate and do a little differently? That's my question. My proposal sort of goes to some of the things which we're seeing in this report, and it goes to your point, Councillor Knight, that whilst we have a lot of ideas here, I think there's still a steer needed, and Councillor Strawn hits a nail on the head really, that we should bookend it. Thursday, something on the Thursday, something on the Sunday, but I'm not sure from the report what that should be. And I'm mindful that we are running out of time. So while some of this is operational, a lot of it is new and does need some strategic direction from councillors. And I'm worried that we can't keep coming back to council to get approval, or this committee to get approval for what we're going to do. So I wonder whether there's a case for some councillors having some delegated authority over this, taking the steer from this committee, but working with officers on an operational level to help make a couple of decent events out of the Thursday and the Sunday. So I've got a question, and that's something I'd like to propose, because I think that's the only way we're going to make this work in good time.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone able to answer that question? Testing out organisational memory. I'm looking towards Councillor Russell here.
Well, I may be a lot older than Councillor Page, but I have to say I have no memory at all of the other two Jubilees, and I suspect that they weren't celebrated nationally in quite the same way. I mean, this is a fantastic achievement. I mean, the Queen became the Queen when I was 1 year old, and that says a lot. So, yeah. I'm sorry, Councillor Page, I can't help you with that.
I remember the Silver Jubilee in 1977 when I was 5 very clearly. Carry on.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. We've engaged with recently with the History Society and are looking potentially to do a run-out to develop a very small video media sort of package with them for 10-15 minutes, which would cover a lot of the previous kind of Jubilee events and other sort of memories from Biggleswade, with a strong Biggleswade focus as well.
Okay, thank you. So we have a proposal. I think perhaps it would be helpful to clarify who you're proposing to as part of that sort of core team to help the officers organise the event, and then need to see if we have a seconder.
Well, I think it would be nice to know who's prepared to put themselves forward. But for me, you're the chairman. I'm the deputy chairman of this committee, and I hate to propose this, but Councillor Russell is the mayor as well. So for me, I would perhaps, if the three of us were to take some delegated authority from this committee to work with officers on an operational level to organise 2 bookend events, one for the Thursday, one for the Sunday, and reporting back to the committee at the very least, and to all councillors if necessary, via email, whether that's every other week or something like that, to make sure that the checks are in place to make sure we're doing the right thing. The reason I propose that is because it's not just about the events. There are some seemingly operational things in here, but things we've never done before, which I think require some strategic direction. So things like, where are the banners going? Where is the bunting going? And I think councillors offer some of that knowledge that will be helpful for staff. So I'd like to propose, I guess, myself, yourself, and Councillor Russell, if others were willing to support that.
Thank you. Okay, so is anyone else like to be part of that team with some delegated support to work with officers? And is anyone willing to second that proposal?
I'm willing to second it. Willing to second it. I think that's the most appropriate people to do that for any number of reasons. The only thing I think that should happen is that there should be reports to everyone on the council, not just this committee, as to what's going on, and possibly at some stage, because the next committee meeting won't be for some months, reports will need to come into full council formally as well as the informal reports. But apart from that, I'm more than happy to second that proposal.
Thank you. I think that's entirely appropriate because I know we're all being asked by members of the community what the town is doing to celebrate the event. Okay, any other comments before we go to a vote? And we'll go to the vote then. Who's in favour of the proposal as outlined? Unanimous. Okay, that's passed. Thank you. Okay, next, 9B, car park permit charges. So this is an item on permit charges for residents and workers that haven't been revised, I think, since 2018. Who would like to open on this, please? Councillor Fage.
I have a pecuniary interest, so we'll leave, but I understand I'm allowed to make a brief statement before I do. So I just a couple of things. So in the introduction, it gives the impression, either intentionally or not, that the chairman and deputy chairman, so that's me, recommended the below changes. Look, we gave some historical information about where the charges came from, but this is not my recommendation, so I would just like that minuted if that's okay, please. Secondly, I understand an email was sent earlier with some information around how many residents have various kinds of permits, whether those are resident permits or worker permits, and whether they're buying them monthly, quarterly, 6 monthly, or annually. All I'll say is that I've given that data a brief look through, and I admit that it was brief and it was on my phone, so I couldn't analyse it in a great deal of detail. But I hope whatever decision is reached is evidence-led about how many residents are using each kind, and some thought is given to that. But I will say, as a resident who has a permit, these charges that we currently have are the same as when they were introduced in 2018. So that needs to be considered as well. But I will now leave the room.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fage. I will call you back in when we have finished this item. Okay, anyone else like to speak on that? Councillor North.
Well, just to say, thank you, Chairman. Just to say, I think it's a sensible proposal, and it will raise a bit more money for the town, probably, because most people probably will accept it and just pay it, won't they, if they need a permit. So, and I don't think it's excessive. £12 a month for a yearly ticket. What's that? 30 pence a day or something, or 40 pence a day. So that's all. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. So if I could make a remark, perhaps, and I'll pass to Councillor Thomas. The concern that Councillor Fage mentioned, so I've had to look at the data that was shared. So historically, we have charged a premium for workers who are buying a short-term permit as opposed to an annual permit, and you can see the extent of that premium in the figures in the table. Historically, we have not charged a premium for residence permits. So formerly, a single month was £10 and 12 months was £120, 12 times 10. As laid out here, the proposal is to include a premium for residents purchasing monthly and quarterly and biannual permits. Looking at the data, for everyone may not have had a chance to look at this, but for workers, currently there are only 2 workers buying 1 month permits, 15 buying 3 months, 42 buying 6 months, and 46 buying a year. So Whether it's because of the fact that a year is better value, more people are leaning towards the year, but certainly for the workers' permits, there are relatively few people buying those short-term permits. And of course, there is a greater admin cost for those short-term permits. If you look at the same figures, and this is just the Rose Lane figures for residents, the same pattern is not there. So 27 residents are currently buying the 1 month permit. Then it goes down to 16 for 3 months, 33 for 6 months. So broadly the same number, and it falls down to 18. So at the moment, now whether that's because people only can afford the 1 month or because there's no benefit to them in paying for a year because it's not better value, I think we have to form our own judgment. But I'm a little nervous that the proposal is to introduce a premium to such an extent in one go. So for residents. So essentially at £10 to £20 for a single month. So Councillor Thomas, I think you had your hand up. Can you put your mic on, please?
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. The monthly seems to be going up a lot. So we're kind of penalising people who may just need it for a short term and then it may turn into longer term. You never know, do you? So that seems a bit more than I would have thought. But is the plan to move them on to a yearly? Is that push them that way? Is that the idea?
Well, this pricing would certainly encourage people to do that.
Yeah.
I guess the question to members is that right? Should we look at what the administrative costs are for renewals and find a different balance? But any other comments?
Yeah.
Councillor Strong.
I think it's a very difficult one because I was rather shocked at seeing the increase and the level of the increase. And I'd been interested to know the comparisons to where these figures came from. Clearly, monthly permits are going to cost a little bit more administratively. And I notice there's no fee for a transfer. If obviously someone changes a car, they may need that and there might be a transfer fee that's payable. But I struggled to find comparisons on websites, certainly with local towns, but CBC seemed to be not that far off as where we're intending to go. And if you look at what North Herts are charging and some of their car parks there, they don't seem to differentiate between workers and residents. And some of their charges are quite high. The big thing about these charges that we are doing is that it's actually paying people to commit for a period of time. And I think that is actually a very positive thing compared to, say, North Herts, which appears to be charging, their 12-month season ticket from 25th of October is apparently £740, which is a lot. And their 1 month is only 87, or I say only 87, but it's not, the comparison isn't particularly good in favour of the long term. But so I think our charges are not unreasonable, but possibly I dislike the increase that's going on, particularly in view of inflation at the moment, but our charges actually don't seem to be as unreasonable as they look to be when I first looked, or the proposed charges aren't as unreasonable as I first thought they might be. So I'd much rather they weren't that high, but there is a lot of sense behind it.
Okay, any other comments? Philip, do you want to come up to the mic?
Yeah.
Oh, go on, Dave Thomas.
Sorry.
Councillor Thomas.
No, I mean, thinking about what Councillor Strawn said, the monthly cost isn't actually that high because I paid more than about that just to park once in a car park in Hertfordshire. So looking at it that way, and that was a train station, so it's not a lot. If I'd have thought I could get a ticket for £10 for a month, I would have paid the £10 rather than the £7. But you know, so we're probably not been charging enough.
Okay.
I would say.
Mr. Shropshire, did you want to make a comment before I go? Okay, Councillor Russell.
Like Councillor Strawn, you know, it does seem awful putting rates up quite a bit, but I think we need to take on board what Councillor Fage alluded to, that we haven't actually changed these charges for 3 years, mainly because of the pandemic. But it gets to the point where there are running costs and you do have to think about changing them. So if Councillor North has proposed that we accept the charges as here, I would second that.
Okay, thank you. So we have a proposal, it's been seconded. Mr. Truppin, no comment? No further comment. Okay, yeah. And it is worth noting that the cost of some of our car parks has risen significantly by similar amounts over the last year. Okay, any further comments then before we go to the vote? Then to the vote we will go. Who's in favour of approving the revised pricing effective from the 1st of April as outlined in the report? Passed unanimously, thank you. Okay. Yes, good idea. It's been listed. Perfect timing. Of course, you can watch it. Okay, item C, community toilet scheme. So I think the background on this, and I'll pass to Karim in a moment to provide an update. I think the history of this is it was one of the items that was looked at when we were considering options and projects to take advantage of the Welcome Back funding back in May 2021. And at that time, we decided it wasn't something we wanted to rush into, but we decided that we would come back to it. We forgot to come back to it at the last committee meeting, and Councillor Albone asked if we could raise it tonight. So it is on the agenda tonight. Unfortunately, Councillor Albone has sent his apologies, so isn't able to give us his view. Notwithstanding whatever Karim may add, I think we need to decide as a group whether this is an initiative that we want to investigate and ask officers to seriously look at, or whether this is something that we want to park at the moment. As I understand it, the principle of a community toilet scheme is that local businesses are offered the opportunity to make their facilities available to the general public, and in return for that they get the benefit of increased footfall, and they would probably get a payment from the council to support that facility and to contribute to the running costs. And of course, in return, the community gets the use of additional toilets. So I know Bedford has a scheme, I know Richmond has a scheme, so there are schemes that do exist. Karim, is there anything you'd like to add before I open it to members?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Not really, just to say that we'd definitely be looking into this and discussing this with businesses with suitable premises, essentially. That was it.
Councillor Russell.
I think it is important that we look at the feasibility of this for the town. We need to consider where we want the Market Square to go. And of course, the public toilets are on the Market Square. They cost this council an awful lot to maintain. They're constantly being vandalised and misused. And but we do have an obligation to provide toilet facilities, for instance, for market traders on the days of the markets. So I think we do have to look into this and see whether it is feasible in Biggleswade.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strawn and Councillor Fage.
I agree that we need to look into whether it's feasible or not, but we can't possibly make a decision on whether it is or not on the basis of the information we've got today. We will need a written report setting out how other schemes work, and so that we've actually got an understanding of it. So we've got to provide a community toilets. I've got absolutely no doubt about that. It's the best way of providing them, that's the question. So we've got to look at all alternatives, but as to making a decision positively for or against, it's impossible on the basis of this information. So be more than happy to propose that the officers be instructed to come back and provide a full report to the this committee on the feasibility and otherwise, with how it's worked in other places, the costings, etc. But that's all we can do today on the basis of a report.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think this is very much about deciding whether we want to give that work to officers before they go off and do that investigation. I guess a question on your proposal there, are we suggesting that rather than being in addition to the existing public toilets, we're looking at this potentially as a replacement, or are you imagining this is something that would run alongside the public toilets that we have?
it could be run alongside, or it could be in place of, or it might, so it could be instead of, or it could be working with, or it might not be feasible at all. So there's any number of options there. I don't know because I haven't got the information.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that proposal? Several hands have gone up, I think. I think Councillor North was first, then Councillor Fage to speak, followed by Councillor Russell.
I think, okay, so I understand and agree with basically everything that's been said. The toilets are very expensive, and it would be a nice thing to trial at some point. The only thing I'm very mindful of is the sequencing here, because we have a new place shaping manager who's coming into place. We have an update on that shortly, so he'll be joining us next month. For me, I would like to see us engage, really make sure that we have a connection with every business in the town centre that wants to have a relationship with us as a council, build up that mailing list, build up that communication, and then give them an equal opportunity of providing this service. I don't think we're yet at a place where we have that level of relationship with as many businesses as we would like. And so for me, this is maybe, if not a report for the next TCM, maybe one for 6 months' time, when the place shaping manager has got his feet under the desk and hopefully built up some of those relationships. That's just a suggestion, but that doesn't negate what Councillor Strawn is proposing, I don't think. For me, I think there are more pressing priorities, one of which we've discussed, which need to happen in the next 3 months, but that's just my view.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
I was going to say, similar to Councillor Fage, I think we need to think about the timescales for this, and it's medium-term priority. It's certainly not short-term. But again, I come back to the fact that as a committee, we need to be thinking about where the market square might be going. We know that there are certain pots of money available for the town centre, and we need to look at how it might best be spent. But certainly, I wouldn't want it to run alongside the public toilets that we currently provide, because that is costing a lot, and I'd rather be paying businesses in the way that was alluded to be part of the scheme than continuing to pay what we have to for the public toilets.
Councillor North.
Yeah, perhaps we should add to the project the idea of looking at possible alternatives to the present setup with public toilets. Because I know, I seem to remember some years ago, Rob McGregor was looking at different things that could be done, sort of some that are in use apparently, where you have a sort of cubicle that you go in, use, come out, and then it automatically washes the whole thing out inside of it. Something like that anyway. So perhaps that could be added to the brief here to look at alternatives. Keep the council-run toilets, but not the present ones.
So could I
some
make
sort of alternative technology or something that may be available on the market? I have no idea.
Could I make a proposed amendment to Councillor Strawn's proposal, then I'll come to Councillor Fage. So would you accept an amendment to suggest that we ask officers to put together a report as really part of a strategic review of the toilet offer to include potential community toilets in the 6 to 9 month time frame?
I have absolutely no objection to that. That's what I was trying to allude to, is I don't know what the right answer is. So we've got to have all options on the table and an understanding of all options, whatever they may be.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Fage.
I'll be very quick. I just think that we're at risk of scope creep here a little bit. We don't know what the layout of the town centre is. It's going to be in 15 years' time, 10 years' time, 5 years' time, who knows? And I think it's premature to have a conversation about permanent toilet location. I'd just like to see this done, a plan for it, trial it, and if that enables us to close our normal public toilets in, quite quickly afterwards, brilliant. And then we can have a longer term discussion about it. But whatever, I guess.
And the important thing is there must remain a high quality public convenience offer for the community in the town, and this is just a case of how we provide that. Okay, anyone else want to comment? Is the proposal reasonably clear? Yes. Fantastic, we'll go to the vote then. Who's in favour of the proposal as outlined? And against? Okay, thank you, it went through. Right, I think that concludes matters for consideration. So that takes us to items for information. Unfortunately, the clerk was unable to join us this evening, so I have agreed that we defer item 10A and asked if that can be on the agenda for next Tuesday's council meeting, perhaps, please. So that takes us to item 10B, staffing. Karim, are you able to give us an update on that, please?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I can confirm that after a round of interviews, rigorous interviews, we have offered the role, and the role has been accepted for place shaping manager to an individual who will be joining us on the 1st of March. They've agreed and signed for that. Indeed, they're going to be coming in a little bit earlier actually for another session which we're running as well. They're that keen. So we look forward to working with them soon. And inducting them very well.
Thank you. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the interview panel, and I'm very excited because I think we've found an excellent candidate there. Councillor Strong.
Delighted we've got an excited chairman, but I think it might be helpful if before this person joins us, if an email could just go around to the council as a whole, just advising them of their name and appointment and start date, just so that everybody's in the loop, because it's not something that will otherwise come out, and it'd be nice to know the name of the person we will be finding out about.
Yeah, well, I think onboarding procedures have improved markedly, but I'm sure that will be noted. Okay, any other comments on that? Okay, thank you. Let's turn over the page. Okay, so that takes us to 10C, the flag policy and procurement. Who would like to go first on this? Councillor North, please.
Yes, I mean, this is a statement of practice, just a correction here, because I believe that the date, the 19th of February, has been removed from the official list. That's worth double checking actually with DCM, is it DCMS? Yeah. Otherwise, I'm in favour of it. Yes, I have no real further comment on it.
Okay, thank you.
I think we should check that, because I don't want to be doing something that is not required, if you like, or sanctioned by people.
The 19th of February being birthday of the Duke of York, noted.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I know this is actually on the agenda as a matter for information or consideration, so if that affects how we handle it this evening. Councillor Strawn, then Councillor Fage.
A couple of questions, much on the same lines. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that flag flying on the 10th of June is any longer appropriate in view of the unfortunate events last year. And I was rather confused with one of the flags being flown at half mast and or full mast. It seemed to contradict itself, because on days of funerals, there was a time when it was meant to be fully flying and not fully flying, and I was when it related to one of the days when the Union flag should be flown, but it was in the day at time of mourning. It should, when it would normally be at half mast, it was saying it should be at full flag, if I've understood the comments correctly. I can't immediately see it.
It's the second to last bullet point, I think. Is that what you're talking about now? On page 17.
No, no, it's not that one. Yes, well, yes, it's the page. It is page 17. Yeah, you're quite right. I've got confused with the gap between, but no, that was just confusing me. And the other thing is, we actually haven't decided whether we should. It's nothing to say we shouldn't fly the flag every day if we wanted to.
Thank you, Councillor Fage.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful with policies, because they should be considered really by a committee or council rather than for information. And whilst there are some noble aspirations in here, I think there are also a few contradictory statements which we need to be very careful of in policies. So, you know, there's something saying that we fly the flag every day, but then we're also saying we fly it on these dates, which is sort of implicit. Same with, what is it, the Civic Centre? I don't know where that is. So is it here? Okay, fine. Only the deputy mayor, how would I know? I guess, I guess there's a few, I guess there's, for me, this is one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it just yet. I'd rather we got this right and took a little bit more time when it was just a bit, when we had a bit more time to make it a priority. I mean, if a member wants to take it away and look at it and redraft it, I think that's okay. But in terms of spending any more staff time on this, it doesn't feel like something we necessarily need to do it at this point. Others may disagree, but for me, I'd be prepared to park this a little while and maybe have something to consider once members have looked at it.
So if I could make a comment on this, so I think my sense is similar to that of Councillor Fage. I think this requires a little bit more review and detailed feedback than I think we can perhaps provide tonight. So I wonder if perhaps the best option would be for members to share feedback with Karim or whichever officer is collating that and present a revised version for consideration at a forthcoming meeting. Councillor North.
Well, but isn't it just basically copying something out of the website of DCMS? I don't think it's something that we've made up ourselves, is it?
Well, of course, we have a town flag, there's a county flag, so there are additional flags that we may consider. Councillor Strawn.
I think we should note the report and that the council will follow the recommendations set out in this, but with a view to considering our overall flag flying policy at a more appropriate time when we will consider it rather than just note it and comply with the recommendations.
Okay, that sounds like a proposal. Does that have a second? Councillor Russell wishes to speak. You're seconding it. Okay, it's seconded. Councillor Russell and then Councillor Thomas.
I think there are certain things that we need to be aware of, and I take Councillor Fage's point. Can we decide what we're calling this building? The address seems to be the old courthouse. I tend to refer to it as the town hall because I think a town this size should have a town hall. It's certainly not a civic centre because a civic centre implies more than it is. And if we're talking about the Orchard Community Centre, could we please call it the Orchard Community Centre? And then something else I would like to say, we do have, I mean, there's an allusion in here to if we ever wanted a town flag. We do have a town council flag. I presented one to Erlensee over in Germany 5 years ago. So I have photographs of a town flag. So, you know, we do have that. And the other thing I'd like to say is that the county flag of Bedfordshire, it says here, could be flown at the mayor's discretion. There is one day in a year when it ought to be flown because the 28th of November is Bedfordshire County Day. And it should be flown on that day if it's not flown at any other time. So, you know, there is a lot here, and I agree basically with the proposal, but I think, and I also agree with Councillor Fage that this isn't a high priority, but maybe coming back in 6 to 9 months again for this committee to consider, but not, you know, we have so much on. This must not be a priority for officers' time.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas. Okay, so I think the proposal then is we note this, it needs some work, but note it as an interim policy. I think continue to fly the Union flag as we do at the town hall at the moment, most days. Provide any feedback to officers and then look to review a revised policy in 6 to 9 months. Is that a fair summary? Happy to take a vote on that? Okay, who's in favour of that?
Yeah.
Unanimous, thank you. Could I just ask in terms of procurement, because I think this item also encompasses the fact that last time we talked about flags, there was the desire expressed to procure some new flags. Could you give us a quick update on that, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So in terms of the flags, the policy which has just been discussed by members intended to draw out as many flags of various types as possible to ensure that we have the maximum range to select from in terms of procurement. So that could be the flag of Erlensee, that could be the County of Bedfordshire flag, and others as well, and in terms of Union flag as well. It's the intention of officers to bring a report to the next council meeting, if you like, to look at exactly to answer the second question which members would raise, essentially around flag poles themselves, where flags are currently flown, and kind of resolve those matters there within that report, along with the selection for the range of flags to be ordered.
I guess, can I request, because I think in the November TCM there was a note there that options are being considered to purchase new flags with the forthcoming Jubilee. Can perhaps, as a matter of some urgency, we make sure that we purchase new flags if we need to, so that we can show the best possible flags. Councillor Russell.
I think it's very important that we make sure that we've got decent Union flags. and I think ours are a little bit worn. I think obviously we should have a town council flag that we can fly. We've got the 2 flagpoles in the market square, so I would have thought that for the Jubilee, the Union flag and the town council flag would be appropriate. I don't think it's an urgent thing to acquire a county flag. I have one if people need to borrow it next November. And I don't think there's a whole list of flags there, and I really don't think that we ought to be thinking about them in this year's budget, to be honest. But I think certainly the town council flag and the Union flag need to be right, and the flagpoles need to be at the right height so that the flags can be flown right. And we need to make sure that we don't have any more problems like we did on Remembrance with the flagpole on the market square.
Thank you. But hopefully, if we do need to buy some new Union flags, which I think some are looking a bit scruffy, officers can do that using delegated powers quite swiftly, because I worry there could be a backlog due to the events taking place in June. Okay, everyone happy to move on from flags? What does that take us to next? D, the War Memorial. Karim, could you give us an update on that, please?
Yes, thanks. So we've sourced back in November 3 quotes for corrective work to the War Memorial in terms around the type facing on the north side, north face in particular. We submitted those through to CBC officers as requested in late December. In January, we received a response from officers from CBC thanking us for the quotes and asking us if we could generate some more quotes for the other memorial, the other stone memorial on the other side of the road, to add to that list of quotes. So we've since gone out and received so far 2 quotes, I think it is, and we're sourcing a 3rd quote for work to the other stone monument. And once that is done, then we will submit that back through to CBC officers, and they will be able to kind of initiate the work, which has been outstanding for some time. Additionally, we've agreed that the plantings for the memorial can be put in place from, I think it's April this year, with plants to be put in from June of this year, and also the railings around the War Memorial were painted as well, just in time for Remembrance as well. So that's been sorted.
Okay, that's very helpful. Any questions? Councillor Fage, please.
Thank you for the update. Just a reminder more than anything, particularly over space that might be taken up by plants, for example. Can we please make sure that we, if anything, over liaise with the British Legion, make sure that we over communicate what the plans are and do that well in advance. They're such an important partner of ours, and I'd hate for us to go ahead and do something which didn't have their backing.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
I'm sorry, I'm probably being thick, but I didn't understand what this second memorial was that we were being asked by CBC to get quotes for. What's that referring to?
That refers to the one on the far side of the High Street, down the end. They've asked us for some reason to quote for that monument as well. Pardon? Sorry.
Can you put your mic on?
The one outside the White Hart, or beside the White Hart car park, yeah.
Well, that's not a memorial. That's a Victorian drinking fountain. And why are we being asked to refurbish that? It's not been in place very long. And, I'm just wondering why we're allowing officers without any decision from council, and I don't mean our officers, but officers dictating what we do on the market square as far as that's concerned, because I don't see the need to refurbish that.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Strong.
Oh, I was wondering where this second memorial was, and I think that drinking fountain has been comparatively new. Yes, the War Memorial make it good, look as good as possible, but why should we be told what we're doing elsewhere, and from people who don't obviously refer to things in the correct way?
So it sounds like the proposal is to ask officers to really focus on the War Memorial and avoid scope creep. Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
Someone like to second that?
Yes, please.
Okay, any other comments before we vote on the proposal from the chair? No? Okay, let's go to the vote. Who's in favour of that, of asking officers to focus exclusively on the War Memorial? Thank you. Okay, that's unanimous. Perfect. Christmas preparations, 10E. So of course, our contract has reached its conclusion with our current suppliers. So I think we need to go to tender to make sure we have a good offer for Christmas 22. Karim, are you able to give us an update on that, please?
Yes, thanks. So this week, actually, we're pulling together a report with a package for the tender exercise that we want to run for the Christmas offer for 2022. That will include the whole Christmas package as we delivered just recently for the Christmas 2021 offer. It will also include the light festoons as well, and we will send that out to a number of companies, some of which we've already been warming up actually ahead of this. So that's it's all on track actually.
Okay, thank you. And do you plan to share that sort of invitation to tender document or specification with members?
Yes, that is our intention.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, any questions on that? No, okay, that's all noted then. That all seems straightforward.
As long as it is shared, because some members have an awful lot of experience of this. And I think, you know, there are lots of pitfalls as somebody who.
Yeah, I think the sense is we don't want to be too prescriptive in the specification that's shared with people that, you know, companies that have been invited to respond. But I agree that it sounds like members would like to see that invitation to tender, and maybe we have some comments on it. Councillor Fage.
That was my point. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we will move on to everybody's favourite subject, 10F, pigeons.
Yes, so just under 2 weeks ago, we went to the Market Square with the pest control individual. This is to progress the option of a pilot scheme for live capture bait boxes to be deployed and used over a 5-week period. When we arrived on site, unfortunately, the pest control expert essentially told us that they were not able to use the pitched roofs at all for placing their live capture bait boxes, and therefore required the use of flat roof, essentially, which the area in question with the pigeon issue is all completely pitched. So we went around to at least 6 different buildings in the immediate vicinity of a 20 to 30 meter bird's eye view, if you like, radius of the pitched buildings. We went into those 6 buildings and requested access, and were turned unfortunately down on 5 of those buildings. One of those buildings, though, did say that they are doing some corrective work to their flat roof, which will take another couple of weeks, and they will grant us access in March to deploy the live capture bait boxes. So that's where we're at the present with this.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. Councillor Fage.
Thank you for the update. We wouldn't have to use the flat roof of a shop, would we? Because we have a flat roof ourselves of a storage unit that we have near the town centre. Could that be used? It's our asset.
So I think you're referring to the container that's next to Century House.
Yeah, would that be an option? Maybe worth taking away, because the reason I say that, is because we're I presume sort of getting near the season where eggs get laid and more pigeons arrive. So kind of time is of the essence, I guess.
Thanks, Councillor Fage. So we did look at our shipping container. Indeed, we tried to gain access to the roof to have a look at actually the problem from the pitched roofs areas. And this pest control expert told us that he was not able to use that roof, the roof in question on the shipping container. So alas.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Can I ask what happens to these pigeons if we collect them live? Because I know that in the fields around the town, there are already flocks of a couple of dozen pigeons at a time in various fields. Where are we putting these pigeons when we collect them?
My understanding is the proposal is to capture them in a humane way and then shoot them. I did the other day take a few photos of the pigeons just after they'd landed on one of the roofs and taken off. Obviously, there were too many to count unless you get them in a picture. And I counted in excess of 50 pigeons, and I think there's at least 2 flocks. So I think there has been considerable growth in the size of the flocks in the year that we've been looking at this. So I think there is some urgency. And it's certainly true that pigeons, as I understand, breed all year, but we're approaching peak season for pigeons to breed. But it does sound like you have a plan, hopefully, to start the activities in March. Any other comments on that? Councillor North.
Well, I would just like to pass on a suggestion from a member of the public that we should have a pigeon roast. We've heard about hog roasts. We should have a pigeon roast today and set up something like a barbecue or something in the Market Square and let people try and catch their own pigeon and sling them onto the barbecue and then eat them, because they are eatable, aren't they?
Would anyone like to second that proposal? My understanding is you can eat wood pigeon, but my understanding is these are a different type of pigeon and they're less appetizing.
Oh, right. So that's a non-starter then.
But I'm not an expert.
It's not a main course either.
I think it depends how hungry you are. Okay, I think we've done pigeons. So hopefully by the next TCM, we'll actually have started proceedings. Okay, that's everything on the agenda, which takes us on to the public open session. Can I assume there are still no members of the public? Would the member of the public like to speak? If you would like to speak, please raise your electronic hand. No, no sign shown. Okay then, so we will move on. Thank you. And therefore we have one exempt item. So will someone therefore please move that we go to
Move that
exempt?
we go into exempt.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Please end the public meeting. Thank you.